Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Good to see a few of you on early already. Hope you're all awesome and well. Good morning. Welcome along to the daily chat, folks. Good to see you. Let's do the quick warm-ups while we're waiting for a few of you to jump on. Jason Witten's my name. Most of you know that. If you don't already, that means you're new. Hello to you if you're new. You might be joining us from one of our Facebook groups or our mentoring program. Welcome along. Fabulous to have you here. We catch up each day at about 10 past 8, talk about the world of property investing and the things that are going on around it, try and make sense of this thing that we're doing, this property investment idea, the idea that we're going to buy some good real estate, keep it for, well, I say forever, but nothing's forever, but keep it for a long time to create some financial stability, some financial freedom, some choices in the future as a property investor. Now, two sayings around here if you're new. Number one, this thing's a marathon, not a sprint. Property is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Anyone tells you that, they're full of shit. Excuse the French. No one. And number two, buy well, don't sell. Buy a good property. Buy a good property. It doesn't have to be the perfect one. No such thing as a perfect property. Buy a good property, keep it, look after it, and then it'll look after you. That's the drill. Boil it down to the simplest facts that I can understand after doing this for 20 plus years. Helped people buy over 10,000 properties. Along the way, learned one or two things that I get to share with you, maybe, each day. This is how we do it. So welcome along. Good to see you. Whoever's here. Oh, here we go. Got a few people up and at it this morning. Aaron, morning to you, mate. Good to see you. Dave is in the house. There's Luke. School holidays, isn't it, Luke? Everyone's out and about with the kids. Did a bit of that myself yesterday. Danny, good morning. Rose. The witch is dead. Yes. Well, ding dong, the witch is dead. Dan Andrews has fallen on his sword, huh? There you go. It was inevitable, right? It was inevitable. There you go. And Joel, good morning. That's awesome. Great to see you. The old time zone's going to change. I think it's this weekend, isn't it? But anyway. All right, folks, let's have a chat this morning. I thought it was, a bit funny. Number one menace. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. Well, if you hear myself and Andy Fenton talk about the number one menace who messes with our wealth or messes with money, dollars and cents, really across every facet of our community is the politicians. They make up rules. They change them. They increase taxes. Anyway. But, can we do anything about that? Well, maybe we can when and if we vote for, the right party. But I don't think there's a such thing as a right party in Australia. They're all pretty the same, and they're all pretty useless in one way, shape, or form of recent times. But let's talk about what's happened. What's going on. But I want to talk about it in relation to the debt cycle, folks. What happens, and is it still a good time? Is it still a good time to invest in property? Now, this came out yesterday. Well, it might have been even before. I think I saw it in the airport lounge last night. Dan Andrews resigns. Anyway, he's a bit of a menace, right? Most people I know in my circle, I don't move in, multiple circles, but, most people I know in my circle didn't enjoy his world of policies and or what he has proposed after a long problem, Victoria's record debt, Australia's record debt. And it's nothing new around the world, by the way, folks. So this is not unusual. We're going to talk about the debt cycle. And, COVID and all sorts of things. Everyone handled that, in one way, shape or form. And Victoria, unfortunately, had the longest lockdowns in the world. And, I don't think it was handled well. Most people don't. I don't know if I'd get into the politics. It'd probably, anyway, for the moment, I feel I'd probably be as much of a menace on the other side. I don't know. Maybe I need to get a bit more mature. But when it comes to the world of property investing, what has Dastardly Dan proposed in Victoria? Well, he's proposed to increase taxes everywhere, payroll taxes, land taxes, a tax on short-term letting. He, proposed that was getting in behind this 2-year rent ban, all sorts of stuff, as politicians do. But why was he doing that? Let's talk about that today. Let's talk about the idea of what was going on in the form of a debt cycle. And is it still, this is kind of like, is it still a good idea to invest in property? I think it's a great idea to invest in property. But let's learn about the debt cycle today in a very high level form, and make sure that we understand that we can use that to make good decisions as property investors. That's what I'm talking about today. So what happened? Let's do a little bit of what happened just recently. Well, we had COVID. Let's call that 2020. And every government around the world, including Australian government, including the states, most of them, in one way, shape, or form, accessed debt, increased their debt levels, increased debt. Okay. And how did they do it? Well, borrowed from the coffers, printed money, you name it, whatever that mechanism of that happened. But we had an increase in debt across our states, across our nation, when it come to trying to keep the country on track, right? That's what happened. What's the upside of that? Well, it flowed out into the community and things kicked off not too bad. Everyone was, not too stressed, in real terms when it came to, COVID and the unknown. That's a great thing. Our society didn't sort of, crumble into chaos, and everyone sort of, decided to, buy a gun and, run around the streets and do crazy stuff. That was what it was designed for. But what happened? Well, we've increased our debt. Does debt go away if we increase it? Yeah. Well, no. Well, it's got to be paid back. And right now, this is the thing, ladies and gents, team folks. The debt, it has to be paid back. Now, don't get too worried about this recession thing. And how does it get paid back? Well, governments have to pay that debt back, or at least reduce that debt. There's a couple of things, right? They need to reduce the debt and also get inflation under control. That's kind of the big conversation when it comes to this idea of like what is in the future after debt rises. Well, we need to manage the debt. Because what happens when free flow of money flows out, what else happened out there? Well, inflation went up, right? Okay. So this is where we are. This is what's going on. Is it abnormal? Well, is it unexpected? No, it's not unexpected, folks. It's like we were talking about the other day, right? We're talking interest rates go down to the lowest ever in history. And is it unexpected that they would go back up? No, they're not. No, it's not. Okay, well, debt is at the highest in history, or record debts, right? Is it unexpected that it has to be paid back? Or certain governments, if it's states or national or whatever, rearrange the budget, rearrange spending, rearrange taxes to pay it back. It's not unexpected, right? That's not unexpected. Now, these are normal problems that we as investors have to manage and navigate and whatever. The challenge for me, the challenge for you is that often the government, they want to sort of tax, let's say, a property investor. So let's say we're being charged more land tax because now it's not the end of the world, by the way. It's, a couple of $100 extra in Victoria. So this is where I'll talk about that in a minute. We don't get too dramatic about it. But tell me, folks, what happens if there's a cost to you? Your interest rates go up, your land tax goes up. What do you do as an investor? What do you do as a business owner? Your costs go up. Are you a charity? Because if you are, you should be registered as one and at least get a tax deduction and have the benefits of being a charity. Or are you a business? And property investing, by and large, is a business. We're in property investing to create a profit for the future, aren't we? Tell me, what happens if your costs go up? What ultimately happens? Where do you, within 12 to 24 months, most investors should, but most investors do pass on the cost to who, folks? Yeah, you got to pass it on. Now, listen, and this is one of the things that I do a lot of coaching around with property investors. I mean, we're genuinely good people. You know, we want to buy a few properties and create some wealth for ourselves and our family. And we genuinely want to provide a good property for our tenants. It's smart. It's human. You know, I hope my tenant enjoys living at the property. And if they do, they like it, then they'll look after it. Then I'm looked after and they're looked after. Like we genuinely care. This rhetoric of, property investors are, anything other than that is just complete and absolute rubbish. Anyway, I'm going to get distracted on that stuff. But, genuine people who genuinely care, who genuinely are in it for the win-win. The win-win, all right? Win-win. However, at the end of the day, you're not a charity. You can't be losing money to then be paying for someone else to live in a property that at a loss to you. That's stupid. That's just dumb, right? Anyway, there you go. So, where did we get to? Did I get a bit distracted? Probably did. The debt, it has to be paid back. There's a cost. It's getting passed on to us as property investors. What happens? Well, we pass it on, right? So let's talk about the debt cycle and what happens, right? So debt went up, which often means there's money out there, right? It increases output, increases demand. We get some consumer spending, which gets some government spending, and we get some investment. So what happened? The government increased debt. They gave it to us. What do people do? Put it in the chat for me. The government said, all right, here we go. Every first home buyer can get a free property, basically. We'll give you some extra money. We'll give you a boost. What did you do with that money? What happened when people got the COVID bonus? Did they save it, or did they go out and spend it? What happened, folks? Tell me in the chat. Did they spend or did they save? And it was a bit of a mix, actually. The smart people sat on that money and went, oh, maybe. But most of us took the cash. And what did we do? We bought a new big screen TV, right? And folks, that was the point. That was the point of that money. They spend it, right? Then government, the consumers did spending, governments did spending. Yeah. Boom, Luke. Exactly. That's what happened. Now, for me, for you, the point, the fantastic point is Luke bought an asset. Unfortunately, many people bought maybe a car went up in value, didn't it? Bought a big screen TV, bought a jet ski, whatever. Anyway, what happened? Lots of investment, government spending and infrastructure. There were some big things. So the government debt went up, but they didn't raise taxes. Okay, what's inevitable? What's coming next? Well, household debt went up as well because we had some spare cash. We maybe felt a little bit more interest, a little bit more wealthy. And, let's face it, folks, interest rates were low. Everyone got crack-a-lacking, and so did business. Business debt went up as well. So, but what does all that mean? Well, let's have a look at something that happens here. GDP. Everyone heard of GDP. Is our GDP going up? Is our GDP going down? If it's down, then we're in a recession, and if it's up, we're good. We're healthy, right? Whatever. Now, it's not necessarily the perfect measurement, but this is what happens, right? Consumer spending, government spending, investment, net exports, total demand, total about GDP. Anyway, gross domestic product. These things either underwrite or take care of it. But the challenge is it was fueled by debt, right? So we took care of our GDP. So we didn't go into a recession, but we borrowed money to fuel the economy, right? And now it's got to be paid back. There you go. That's kind of, anyway, very in simplistic terms. There's a lot smarter people who could probably dive deep into that idea, folks. and give you a bit more insight. But what's my point about that, folks, is the government's putting up the taxes. They're going to spend less. They need to save up and take care of some things, right? Now, over here in the debt side, what do we do now? Okay, because it's been a bit more difficult for us as investors to access personal debt, and that's going to change, ladies and gents. It's going to change. So, what's the whole point of my conversation this morning? The point of my conversation this morning is about the idea of the debt position and situation is not unexpected. Well, the taxes being raised to pay it back. As property investors, does that mean you should not invest? The answer is no. The actual dollar amounts, right, folks? So, this is, and what am I talking about? This little thing here. As property investors, you must be very aware of how you think and feel, because there is a thing called this disposition effect. Okay, it's a psychological process where we give more credence, we give more power to a negative, a loss, than a gain or a positive. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Well, for example, there was a fair bit of rhetoric recently saying, Victoria's put up their land taxes. Victoria, is taxing property investors. And yes, completely, absolutely accurate. It has risen. To what amount? $500 to $1,000, like for the whole year, folks. All right. So the dollar amount is minuscule in comparison to the overall situation for you as a property investor. Now, I'm not saying that some property investors, like $1,000 isn't a big deal. And if it is, then you're not budgeting or you're not running your buffers very well, and or pass that on as quick as possible. However, the point is, if taxes go up $1,000, which is not a big deal, and you then don't invest in Victoria, let's say. So then let's just say, let's forget about this. Let's go number one place, population increase, the number one population increase in Australia, Victoria. The affordability, plenty of jobs, the building and the pricing and the city, all very attractive to live in, et cetera, et cetera. Students, lots going on, rent increases. I showed yesterday the growth, forecasted in Victoria to be great, like when it comes to the property prices, because undersupply, like there's so many good things now, so many positive things that are being discounted, or this other negative thing being exacerbated, and some of us may not be making smart decisions based on something that's not very big, and we're giving it more credence than we should, and inevitably, what's happened? Dan's getting ditched. Him stepping down is the party going, hey, we're going to get flogged at the next election. We need a patsy to lose, not you, right? That's what's going to happen. And then there'll be some changes. The next politician, doesn't matter who gets in, is not going to go back and, we're not going to charge land tax anymore. They're not going to go do it. I guarantee it. Even though they're squawking about it now, you watch. If they roll it back, I'll fall off my chair. I don't care who gets in, all right? They don't undo that because they still got the problem. They still got the problem to fix, which is debt. Anyway, what's the point? The point, folks, is this. I said, the question today asked is it still a good time to invest? The answer is yes, it is. And, is Victoria Is Victoria fine? Yes, it's absolutely 100% fine. And Victoria is an amazing state. You can't keep it down. People love it. And away you go. Now, if it's part of your plan, make sure you do your cash flows, make sure you do your analysis, make sure you do your due diligence. That none of that changes. But don't miss out on Victoria, let's say, or Queensland or WA or any of the other places because of some mad politician doing some stupid things that you got to measure the actual impact in our portfolios, folks. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully it made sense. I hope the conversation was of use today. But Wealth Coffee Chat done and dusted, folks. Join me tomorrow for another one. We'll hang out at the same time and do that again. As always, if you've got anything that you might want me to pontificate, chat about, talk about, leave it in the chat for me, and I'll create a Wealth Coffee Chat around it as we go forward. All right, folks, that's it from me. Good to see you. Thanks for joining, and bye for now.